India-China relations. India-China relations are also important because this year we are commemorating 75 years of our ties. 1950 में diplomatic tie, after 1949 में वहाँ पे कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी came to power, 1950 से हमारे diplomatic ties start हुए थे, so we are commemorating 75 years. But other than that, we see normalization occurring again, and therefore there are lots of articles by all the experts. क्या है normalization long term है? How do we make it long term? How can we improve India-China relations further? Why there was an article by M.K. Narayanan. He says that be cautious, don't trust China. We'll understand those. So everything that has been in news over the last 6 months, वो सारे points we have inculcated here, other than the basic background point. So, but let's start with the beginning. We say that India-China diplomatic relations or relationships is something, was a diplomatic dog that didn't bark. इसमें हम क्या, what are we trying to say? For centuries we have been neighbors. Now we have been neighbors for centuries, but as such there was no relationship on the military front, on the economic front. Now there was very less role, very less interaction between the two neighbors. It was mostly because of the mighty Himalayas which prevented our interaction, and thus there was as such no big trouble between the two nations. Okay, this changed in the post-colonial world, when the communist power came to power, when the communist party came to power in China, when United Kingdom or when the Britain got away from India, when two leaders, India में एक independent prime minister, China में एक independent president came into front, they thought that in order to take these two independent nations ahead, we have to work together. And India had given a lot of importance to China in the beginning. You will see India was the first country after first non-communist country after Burma. तो कम्युनिस्ट कंट्री तो चाइना को पीपल्स रिपब्लिक ऑफ चाइना को रिकॉग्नाइज कर रहे थे, बट नॉन कम्युनिस्ट कंट्रीज वर नॉट डूइंग इट. Only Myanmar, Burma, which is today's Myanmar, did it, and India was the second country to do it. India became only the second non-communist country to recognize People's Republic of China. Otherwise, everyone was recognizing whom? जो भी ताइवान है, Republic of China, right? So we were the first country to do that. We also led the movement for ending the isolation of New China in international politics by getting them included in the United Nations. The idea was this, like one of the visions of PM Nehru was to enlist support of China for building a peaceful and stable world based on international rule of law. अपने नेहरू जी बड़े आइडियलिस्ट थे, चाइनीज वाले बड़े प्रैक्टिकल रहे. Okay, initially this was the scenario. If you go to India of 1950s, 1951, 52, 53, you will see we are focusing on good relations. China, India should have good relations and everything. But then things deteriorated in late 1950s. What happened there? First thing was China invaded or occupied Tibet in 1950. Now, when this happened, we were initially unhappy. Yes, Tibet was supposed to be a buffer state between us, but China occupied it altogether. We were initially unhappy, but we were like, chalo, koi baat nahi. In order to ensure good relations with China, we accepted that, and you will see we gave up almost India gave up almost all its privileges in the region inherited from colonial past through the 1954 agreement on border trade. We had several privileges in Tibet during the colonial rule. We gave almost all of it just to ensure that India-China relations ठीक रहेंगे. But Tibetan uprising in 1959 was suppressed, like people in Tibet rose against China, was suppressed very brutally by China. At that time, Dalai Lama and many of his followers got refuge in India. That became a problem. Meanwhile, border problems had also emerged. Aksai Chin region. Aksai Chin region. अच्छा, when we'll come to India-China border issue, हम उसे थोड़ा और detail में पढ़ेंगे कि how it started and all. But Aksai Chin region was kind of occupied by China. Now, Aksai Chin region का situation ये था कि it was a desert region. Politically, it was part of India, It was considered part of British India also, but it didn't have any military control. No one actually controlled it. So China found the option and it illegally occupied it. That became a issue of tension. Dalai Lama Tibet issue, Dalai Lama issue became a issue of tension between these two countries. When India tried to reoccupy Aksai Chin, there were more counter acts done by China. Eventually, all these things led to what? All these things led to the 1962 Sino-Indian War. Background again, we'll repeat it. Early 1950s, things are going well. Tibet is being occupied by China. India was like, chalo koi baat nahi. Let's promote good relations with neighborhood, with our neighbor. We gave up almost all our privileges that we had in Tibet. But then occupation of then China also occupies Aksai Chin. Tibet mein uprising happens. The it is getting brutally suppressed. The Dalai Lama comes to India, gets refuge in India. That is also not seen very positively by China. All these things eventually led to India-China war. And after this things dynamics changed drastically. For almost 30 years, there was very few interaction. We'll see. Ambassador relationship would be established only in 1976, 15 saal baad. It will be broken somewhere in 1961-62, and will not even have ambassadors till 1976. When Rajiv Gandhi in way back in late 1980s will go to China, this will be the first visit of a prime minister from India after Nehru visited the place. So things changed drastically after the China-India war. Then there were some other factors which led to deterioration of relation. What was that? One, we were very close to USSR, but there was a divergence between USSR and China. अब कौन कम्युनिस्ट वर्ल्ड को लीड करेगा, उस पे दोनों के बीच में both these countries are having differences, and because of these differences and because of India's closeness with Russia, India and China tensions remained high. Then China also started supporting Pakistan, especially after the 1965 war. फिर से क्या होगा? India-China tensions will remain high. Broadly, this is the picture. In IR, we don't need to go into every story in detail. Broadly, how India-China relations deteriorated. Then 1962 war especially had huge impact on our relations. Before 1962, no, we were not that much focused on border infrastructure, on militarization of border areas, but that started happening after that. Again, when this would happen, we understood that China has improved its infrastructure a lot. We also started doing it. It will create a situation of tussle between them. It will create a situation of distrust between the two countries, because both of us would be worried. They are improving their infrastructure in the border areas for what purpose? For the purpose of countering us. They may invade us tomorrow. Same was the situation from the China's side. So this led to deterioration in the situation. So 1960s were bad for India-China relation. 1965 के बाद China, Pakistan also started getting close, further worsening the situation. उसी late 1960s में India, Russia getting closer. India, Russia तो were always close, but Russia and China diverging away became an issue. Things started changing after mid 1970s. Indira Gandhi government restored diplomatic relation to ambassadorial level. Some 15 years after, it was downgraded in 1961. So we had embassies. China opened embassy in India. We opened embassy in China, and at least this diplomatic relation was established. Then in 1981, Chinese foreign minister visited India, and he agreed to resume talks on the border issue. Both of us agreed to resume talks on the border issue for after around 20 years. The next major initiative was by PM Rajiv Gandhi in 1988 when he visited China. This was after 34 years that an Indian Prime Minister visited China. इससे पहले Nehru visited China in way back in 1954. Here, some measures were taken to further improve discussion on border issue, and things were moving in the positive direction. यहाँ पे the two sides agreed to set up a joint working group. at the vice ministerial level, not at the ministerial level. Ministerial level would have been a higher level. At vice ministerial level, to meet annually in order to accelerate, in order to fast track the search for a settlement on the border issue. So are we seeing how things are evolving? 1976 में ambassadorial relation starts. 1981 में what starts? Discussion on border issue starts. 1988 में there is a joint working group at the vice ministerial level set up for dealing with the border issue, or to accelerate that. In addition to that, over the period we have been meeting bilaterally at G20 level, BRICS, SCO and so on. ये बाद में होते रहे हैं, अभी तक चल रहा है. Then in 1992 more consulates were opened. जैसे China opened consulate general in Mumbai and India opened one in Chicago. In late 1990s, relation nosedived a bit. Why? What happened here? In late 1990s, we tested nuclear weapon, and one reason that we gave we need nuclear weapon was our neighbor is China, and we have threats from China. It's a nuclear weapon country, so relations nosedived a bit. Okay, this was the scenario in the first 50 years. Till late 1990s हम जाते हैं, तो this is what happened. 1950 से late 1990s तक this was the scenario. Broadly हमें जानना है, like if you want to read every detail, that will not be needed for the examination, but you can read any history book, you can go to wiki page and पढ़ सकते हो क्या क्या हुआ. एग्जाम के लिए जरूरी नहीं होगा. एग्जाम के लिए broadly what are the things which happened we should know. But there was positive turn in India-China relation from in the 21st century. What had happened was, in late 1990s, China also realized that India is doing well economically. अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी का एरा था, इंडिया इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ में बहुत अच्छा कर रहा था. बाद में even during मनमोहन सिंह एरा, India was growing very well. China needed big market. India was that big market. So economically we were very significant for each other. जो skirmishes थे, like border skirmishes, that those were also not that high, and relations strengthened. So positive turn in India-China relationship since the beginning of 21st century. One thing that led to this positive turn was that we decided, let us not allow political difference to come in the way of exploiting economic opportunities, and that is why you will see India-China trade, which was only $2.2 billion ka way back in 2000, went to $127 billion in FY20. फिर at international forums also we were cooperating. जैसे when it came to climate change negotiation, India and China was leading the side of developing world. When we wanted reforms at IMF, World Bank, it was India, China who were kind of working together to have more say for the newly emerging countries. So there was cooperation at this level also. फिर there have been many significant bilateral visits also. President Xi Jinping visited India in September 2014. Prime Minister Modi visited China in May 2015. I say, these visits happened earlier also, but here I'm emphasizing what happened in the last 10 years. So last 10 years में there were measures going on for improving the relations. In fact, President Pranab Mukherjee visited China again in 2016. फिर we were also meeting regularly at G20, BRICS and other such summits. But then this डोकलाम क्राइसिस occurred. डोकलाम क्राइसिस इंडिया, भूटान और चाइना के ट्राई जंक्शन पे एक रीजन था, वहां पे चाइना was trying to illegally occupy it. It was Bhutan's territory, but India defended it. India helped Bhutan. तो वहां पे ये क्राइसिस हुआ, which again increased tensions. But surprising everyone, in 2018 and 2019, two informal summits were held, one in Wuhan and other in Mahabalipuram, where informal summit, like when formal summit happens, we go with a lot of agenda. These are the agreements which will be signed, these are the decisions which will be made. But this was not like that. This was for increasing personal rapport between the two leaders, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi, and ensuring that a message, a strategic guidance goes to defense forces and everyone ki let us take our relations in the positive direction. So after Doklam crisis, when relations could have worsened in 2018 and 2019, we saw two informal summits between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi, which was again the first 2000 से 2019 तक इतना बड़ा कोई क्राइसिस नहीं आया इंडिया चाइना रिलेशंस में. देयर वर इश्यूज, विल टॉक अबाउट दोज इश्यूज.